powder in the ballot?
Yep, like a powder being sent, yeah,
That's ridiculous.
I know.
Good morning, everyone, and I will now call to order the October 3rd, 2024 Clackamas County Board of Commissioners Business Meeting. Administrator Gary Schmidt, would you please take the roll?
Yes, thank you, Chair Smith. First, our staff support today, County Counsel Jane Vedo, Clerk to the Board Andrew Jiraki, online, roll call, online, Commissioner Savas.
Present.
In the room, Commissioner Schrader,
Here.
Commissioner West,
Here.
Commissioner Shull,
Here.
Chair Smith.
Here, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning, everyone. We are holding this meeting in person and virtually. If you've joined us via Zoom for this meeting and are interested in providing public comment, we will prompt you when to do that when the time is right. General public comment will be taken at the usual allotted time. I would like to remind all participants, including staff, elected officials, and members of the public, that Robert's Rules of Order will be followed during this meeting. We welcome your opinions and look forward to your polite participation. Administrator Gary Schmidt, what's up?
Thank you, Chair. First is the consent agenda. Andrew, would you please read the consent agenda?
Consent agenda. Item 1A2. Approval of a contract amendment with Woolpert Incorporated for mobile assessor licensing and a renewal of a professional services agreement. Amendment value is $213,469.62 for 3 years. Total contract value is $544,822.13 for 7 years. Funding is through budgeted county general funds. A3. Approval of a grant application to the Oregon Criminal Justice Commission for jail-based medications for opioid use disorder. Anticipated grant value is $372,771 for 1 year. Funding is through the Oregon Criminal Justice Commission. No county general funds are involved. B, County Administration. 1. Approval of a change order number 21 with Clackamas Progress Partners Limited Corporation for the replacement county courthouse. Change order value is a credit to the county of $48,260.50. Total credit balance is $217,835.05. Funding is through credits from previous change orders, which includes budgeted county general funds. C. 1. Approval of a personal services contract with Burgess and Niple Incorporated for consolidated transportation safety planning services. Total contract value is $1,185,000 for 2 years. Funding is through Oregon Department of Transportation, United States Department of Transportation grants. No county general funds are involved. D. 1. Approval of Amendment Number 7 to increase funding and extend the term of an intergovernmental agreement with Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue for ambulance services. Amendment value is $54,070.92 for 1 year. Total agreement value increased to $463,703.88 for 12 years. Funding is through the cost savings program with American Medical Response Northwest. No county general funds are involved. 2. Approval of an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Sandy for Mount Hood Express bus service. Total agreement value is $141,435 for 1 year. Funding is through the State of Oregon Rail and Public Transit Division and $55,000 from budgeted county general funds. 3. Approval of a grant application to the Oregon Department of Veterans Affairs to support County Veterans Services Office operations. Anticipated award value is $273,069 for 1 year. Total project value is $1,211,016. Funding is through the Oregon Department of Veterans Affairs and $663,074 in budgeted county general funds. 4. Approval Amendment Number 1 to a revenue grant agreement with the State of Oregon to increase shelter funding related to the Governor's state of emergency due to homelessness. Amendment value is $1,400,000 for 9 months. Total agreement value increased to $3,250,000 for 1 year. Funding is through the State of Oregon Housing and Community Services Department. No county general funds are involved. 5. Approval of a revenue grant agreement with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development for Community Development Block Grant Funds. Total grant value is $2,177,287 for 7 years. Funding is through the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. No county general funds are involved. Approval of a 6. Approval of revenue grant agreement with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development for Emergency Solutions Grant Funds. Total agreement value is $193,672 for 2 years. Funding is through the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. No county general funds are involved. 7. approval of a revenue grant agreement with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development for Home Investment Partnership Grant Funds. Agreement value is $921,867 for 9 years. Funding is through the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. No county general funds are involved. 8, approval of a board order to authorize a loan of Home American Rescue Plan funds to the limited partnership for Phase 1 Buildings A and B of the Hillside Park redevelopment project, and delegate limited signing authority to the county administrator and the director of the Department of Health, Housing, and Human Services for all documents necessary for financial closing on the loan. Total loan value is $3,102,082 for 55 years. Loan is through Federal Home American Rescue Plan funds. No county general funds are involved. 9, approval of a grant application to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development Pathways to Removing Obstacles to Housing program for removal of affordable housing barriers within the city of Milwaukee. Anticipated grant value is $6,500,000 for 5 years. Funding is through the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. No county general funds are involved. Madam Chair, that completes the consent agenda.
Thank you very much. Andrew, does any commissioner wish to remove any item off this consent agenda? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
Chair, I move that we approve the consent agenda as read.
Second?
Commissioner West has moved we approve the consent agenda, and Commissioner Schrader has seconded the motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, would the clerk please take the poll?
Commissioner Savis.
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader.
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. I will now recess as the Board of County Commissioners and convene as a Water Environment Services Board of Directors. Gary, what's next?
Next is the consent agenda for Water Environment Services. Andrew, would you please read the consent agenda?
A, approval of a resolution of necessity and purpose authorizing the acquisition of necessary easements by good faith negotiations, if possible, or condemnation, if necessary, for the South Welch's Pump Station upgrade. Total value is $1,200,000. Funding is through West Sanitary Sewer Construction Fund. No county general funds are involved. Madam Chair, that completes the consent agenda.
Thank you, Andrew. Does any commissioner wish to remove anything off this particular consent agenda? Seeing none, would the clerk please take the poll?
Oh, motion.
Oh, I need a motion. Scholl.
I move for approval of the Water Environment Services consent agenda.
Second?
Director Scholl has moved for approval of the Water Environment Services consent agenda, and Director Schrader has seconded that motion. Any further discussion? Thank you. Now we can take the poll.
Commissioner Savis.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl.
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader.
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye. Thank you very much. Passes 5-0. I will now adjourn as a Water Environment Services Board and reconvene as a Board of County Commissioners. And here we are at public communication already. This portion of the agenda shall be limited to items of county business which are properly the object of board consideration and should be nonpartisan in nature, as the BCC is a nonpartisan governing body under Oregon revised statutes and county code. Testimony is limited to 3 minutes. Comments shall be respectful and courteous to all. As a reminder, you can email submissions for public communication at bcc@clackamas.us, and these will be accepted as part of the public record. I will now open the meeting for public testimony, and I will take in-person testimony first. Is there anyone in the room who would like to testify today? Would you like to come up, ma'am? Would you please state your name and your area of residence? I usually say 3 minutes, but you're the only one in the room, and so I don't think it's going to be an issue.
Karen Lee, Oregon City. I won't bore you with any word salads, so I will just like to say that I was really pleased to hear that Clackamas County said they do not want to be Portland, and I totally agree with that. I do not want to be Portland. I drove by the Clackamas Road street up in Clackamas, and they were trying to remove all the homeless, which was really good to see. And it's so sad because I really feel sorry for people that are homeless. And I drive by several places, one at the end of River Road. There was somebody there at one time, and I think it's in the railroad right away, And now it looks like somebody else has moved into that same spot. There was a gal on the lower end of Oregon City. I can't think of what street it was on. And I think she was in a house that was empty, and the police were there, and they were talking to her. And the next thing I saw the next couple of days, she was just laying out on the sidewalk. I don't see her at that place anymore, but it is sad to see it. But I'm really pleased to see that Clackamas County does try and see if they can find placements for these people. And so then that's it. Good job, guys.
Thank you.
And also, let's get Mark and Tootie back in and elect them back into place.
5 November.
Thank you very much. Just so the public knows, and Commissioner West, you may want to chime in, anybody that we see that is homeless always has an offer of a place to live and further treatment to help them back to where they need to be in a productive society. And we do that by trying to assess why they're homeless and try to fit a service around them. But in the end, they are independent individuals and they have a choice. Whereas we see people who are homeless on the streets and think that's not proper. They still have a choice, but we're doing the best we can, and we'll always have work to do in this area. Thank you. Commissioner West?
Yeah, we are very intentional in Clackamas County about how we address this issue, and we approach it from a much different worldview, I believe, than our neighbors to the north. And you mentioned Portland, and then much of Portland has addressed this issue. We implemented a recovery-oriented system of care. That is a very clear indicator to everybody in Clackamas County and the region about what framework and worldview we were going to use to implement these policies. You can find that on our website. I recommend everybody look it up. It's a page-and-a-half read, and it's very clear about our value statements around helping people with homelessness and substance abuse disorder. I don't know, Gary, if we have also the phone number that individuals can call if they're struggling with houselessness, or if we need to help them prevent being homeless. But I know that that's probably on our website. I don't know the website off the top of my head, but it's relatively easy to find. So I recommend if you see a neighbor struggling or you know somebody, help connect them to our services. We've been quite nimble and effective at getting people off the streets and preventing homelessness, because it's part of one of the pillars of a recovery-oriented system of care is prevention, intervention, recovery, and treatment. And so these are the pillars that we abide by in Clackamas County, and we focus on those things. So help people know that we have resources, and where others maybe struggle to get those resources, we try to make sure they're available here in our community. And thank you for your testimony today and letting us know your observations in your community. We appreciate it.
Commissioner West, that would be the CHAW hotline, and that's short for Clackamas Housing Access. And that phone number is 503-655-8575. And as you remember, Commissioners, Clackamas County got a national award for this program at the national conference in July. We were the only county in Oregon to even receive an award, and we got it for this program. And thank you, staff, for working really hard. And what it is, it's a telephone that is occupied 7 days a week, not necessarily 24 hours all the time, but 7 days a week. You call up, they do an assessment, and then try to bring you in and help you further. Thank you very much for mentioning that, Commissioner West. Is there anyone else in the room who would like to testify today? Andrew, is there anyone online who would like to testify?
If you are attending virtually as a member of the public and wish to testify, I'll now ask you to raise your hand, and I'll call on the order that I see. Madam Chair, I have one raised hand. Karen Jealous, apologies if that's a mispronunciation. I'll now allow you to talk. You'll have 3 minutes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for having me. My name is Jealous, and I am a director of a registered 501c nonprofit organization that specializes in in TNR, neuter return of feral and community cats. I can give testimony regarding the complete and utter lack of services and the need for increased services for Clackamas County cats. The fact that in 2024, Clackamas County does not have any services for cats is mind-blowing at a minimum and a travesty overall. Lack of any kind of services whatsoever for cats in our county and in our communities is leading to a massive amount of suffering and isn't acceptable. As a nonprofit, we are receiving dozens of help requests each month for people needing assistance stabilizing their large and growing colonies, and there is no help at all in Clackamas County. We are at the mercy of the one high-quality, high-volume spay-neuter clinic in Portland who opens their phone lines the first Tuesday every month and then closes them within an average of 28 to 30 hours after opening. This doesn't come close to addressing the increasing number of cats in our communities, as this clinic covers cats from all over the state and Southwest Washington. Clackamas County also has zero services for abandoned, injured, or stray cats. There is nothing the residents can do for cats in need. We have had Clackamas County residents reach out to us in hysterics because they have found an injured cat, have contacted Clackamas County Dog Services, who told them to contact the sheriff, who told them they will come out and shoot it and put it out of its misery. The latest case we have dealt with is from 3 cats that were abandoned by their owner, left in an apartment for weeks before the landlord discovered them. Since this location was in Clackamas County, nobody would help her. While she continued to feed the cats and look for a solution, the sheriff told her to just open the door and let them outside. These were 2 intact female cats and 1 under-socialized kitten. If they managed to survive and not be pulled apart by predators, they would have started another feral colony, creating even more problems in our community. Clackamas County needs to do better for these cats. The complete lack of affordable and accessible spay and neuter services has led to an explosion in the population of community cats. The vast majority of these cats are the result of owned cats that are not sterilized, breeding and birthing kittens outside that are then under-socialized and create cat colonies of their own, or free kittens that are handed out for free, unsterilized, from unplanned litters of owned cats. While many say if you want to spay and neuter your cat, it's an easy process, it is anything but easy. For owned cats, the wait can be between 3 weeks to 6 months and can cost anywhere from $20 if you qualify, to $375 at Oregon Humane, to $600 at private vets. If you need to wait 6 months, you will likely have at least 1 more litter of kittens, if not more. This is not affordable for the vast majority of Clackamas County residents who do not use a private vet. Accessibility is also an issue. Many folks needing subsidized spay and neuter services have transportation issues. They may not be available during the day due to long working hours, or they may not have transportation. They may also not have access to proper carriers to transport their pets in for services. And since Clackamas County is such an expansive county without easily accessible transit options, most of the options in the Portland are difficult to reach, making
Thank you
this
very much for expressing your concerns today. I'm going to have our county administrator address this issue. Gary.
Yes, thank you so much for raising this issue. Clearly, there is a concern and there's a need for some level of service. Unfortunately, it is not a state requirement that counties provide a service to cats. There is for dogs, which is why we do have a dog services unit at Clackamas County, nor is it in your county code. And of course, there's a fiscal constraint we always work under. So I know that's not an easy answer, but it's not a requirement. But certainly, staff can talk about what are possibilities we could do, maybe working with the nonprofit sector to provide a level of service. So let staff look into that, and we can report back to you, commissioners.
Thank you very much for calling and letting us know that. Is there anyone else online who would like to testify?
If you are attending virtually and also wish to speak, I'll now ask you to please raise your hand, and I will call on you in the order that I see. This is the final call for if you are attending virtually as a member of the public and wish to testify, to please raise your hand, and I will call on you. Madam Chair, I see none.
Thank you very much. I will now close the public communication portion of this meeting, and we will move on. Gary Schmidt, you have good news.
Thank you. It's my time to share good news of our great work of our employees. Today, I want to recognize our Clackamas Water Environment Services team, the entire team. They recently received one of their required inspections from the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality, or DEQ, and we rated top score, flying colors, and the DEQ wrote, This, DEQ appreciates the professionalism and expertise of Water Environment Services Stormwater Permit Program staff. WES's emphasis on education has resulted in a positive working relationship with the local development community. WES's stormwater management program is well thought out and all-encompassing, meeting the permit requirements and going beyond many of them. DEQ appreciates WES's cooperation and efforts, which are having a positive impact on Oregon waters. Our Director of Water Environment Services, Greg Geist, used to work for the DEQ before he came to Clackamas County and has confirmed DEQ rarely says such positive things about local water agencies. So thank you and congratulations to all of our Water Environment Services team for the work they do every day to protect clean water and make sure that your toilets flush appropriately here for the residents of Clackamas County. That is my good news for today. Thank you, Commissioners.
Great, love hearing that. We'll now move on to Commissioner Communication. Commissioner Scholl, you're up first.
Yes, thank you. And good morning, Clackamas County. On 5 November, we have a general election coming up. On 9 October, your state and county voter pamphlets will come out in the mail. You need to read them because they're going to provide information on many measures, statewide measures and some regional measures that you need to be aware of before you cast your ballot. An example is Measure 117, ranked choice voting, and you're going to want to know all about that before you cast your ballot. Ballots will be mailed out on starting 17 October in Clackamas County. But before that happens, it's the responsibility of every citizen to make sure your voter registration is updated. When the clerk sends out your ballot and your pamphlet, it's got to go to the right address. So please go to the county clerk website, click on the link to update your registration, check to make sure it's right. And also, if you've got a family member or a friend who has moved, make sure they do the same thing. Our elected county clerk, Catherine McMullen, and the elections manager, Justin Larson, their staff, and also the volunteers from Clackamas County who will help with this election. They work very hard. But each of us needs to do our part to make sure things go smoothly by making sure that our address is correct. Also, on the battle against drugs, Oregon is having a difficult time. Oregon and Alaska are not improving in terms of opioid deaths like other states are. So it's important that we become very, very aware. Anybody in your family or a friend or neighbor who might be experimenting or using killer drugs, they need help right now. And we have a 24/7, 365 hotline to our mental health and addiction services. If you know somebody who is using drugs, call the number now, today, 503-655-8585. Do not wait. We're seeing the effects of fentanyl in particular, and often one dose of fentanyl leads to the loss of that person, of that family member, of that resident of Clackamas County. We cannot tolerate this any longer. If you're a parent and you have children and you have not gone to the sheriff's website to look at the video on how to ensure your kids are aware of the drug problem, please go to the sheriff's website and sit down with your kids in front of the TV set and watch that video. Do it now. On Fort Kennedy is a nonprofit that helps veterans in Clackamas County and in the region. They're doing a great job. They are very efficient with the money they receive. And the founder, Tina Kennedy, and her team are very, very dedicated people. They're a very valued nonprofit in our county. And this November, November 2nd, they're going to hold a Fort Kennedy Gala dinner fundraiser. And I encourage everybody to, who can, to participate. Go to the Fort Kennedy website and register. They still have some 50 tickets left. Again, that's on 2 November, and I hope to see you there. On code enforcement issues, some of you might have heard our meeting yesterday on code issues regarding RVs. But as I get around the county, I see a lot of violations of county code. And this, in particular, usually is something with clutter, vehicles that amount, in some cases, to look like a junkyard. People need to be proactive in making sure these problems are solved. And our county code enforcement has got a website. You can go on there and you can file a report on something that you think needs to be cleaned up, and our county code enforcement will look into it. But if you do not take action to report it, code enforcement cannot take action to fix the problem. And let's see what else we have here today for you. I think that's about it today. It's an easy day. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Scholl. Commissioner Savas, you're up next.
My voice is a little compromised due to a sore throat, so I apologize for not being there today, and I'll just be brief. Commissioner Scholl cited a U.S.-wide study that showed which states are improving, where deaths from fentanyl and opioids is going down. Most of the country is seeing declines, but as Commissioner Scholl mentioned, Oregon and Alaska are the only states that are seeing an increase, not a decrease. So that's pretty striking, hard not to draw a conclusion that perhaps Measure 110 had something to do with that. I want to just do a shout out to everyone who attended Saturday at the Gladstone ribbon cutting, the library ribbon cutting, and it was a great day. I love solving problems, and this was a problem that was created a ways back, and we were able, through community efforts and cooperation from both my colleagues on the commission, past and present, as well as the City Council of Gladstone, past and present. So it was a great day, and look forward to completing the next phase of that, which is the Oak Lodge Library. I have much more to say. I did want to talk a little bit about the Clackamas Road matter. I want to give my kudos to our staff and the nonprofits who have actually, over the last couple of years, helped place a lot of the people who once lived on Clackamas Road and place them into transitional housing or permanent housing. So we have made great strides in that regard. However, the folks that were there Monday morning or recently, did not have an opportunity, did not take us up on the offers, even though we worked diligently with them. They did acknowledge that we reached out to them. They did acknowledge that they knew. However, for one reason or another, they did not take us up on those offers, soon enough when housing was available. I appreciate the comments from my colleagues, Commissioner Scholl and West, on Tuesday regarding that we wanted to get whether a car camping site or an RV site or something like that, where the lowest barrier facilities or population can be served. And it's something that I've been hoping we would have done many years ago. I think there's probably, if not all of us on the commission, I think there's momentum to make this happen. We just need to take the initiative to make it happen. I do know that those folks that were there Monday and who left Monday off Clackamas Road simply relocated on nearby streets. So that's an outcome that I think some of us anticipated, and an unfortunate one as well. I'll conclude my comments there, and hope to be back next week, ready and raring to go. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Schrader, you're up.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's great to be here. I wanted to mention that yesterday, our Clackamas Education Service District opened a new child care facility. It is a Head Start facility. They are working very hard as our Education Service District that works with all of our school districts in Clackamas County in order to increase the capacity for child care so people can get to work. And that's the key thing. It's a way for people to make sure that when they have a job, they can get to their job and feel safe and feel, knowing that their children are well taken care of. And so I continue to work on that issue, and I'll be talking to our staff today from our Early Learning Hub that has worked with a coalition of folks that came up with a report on child care initiatives here in Clackamas County and what might be happening down at the legislature. I personally see this as a pro-business economic development issue as well, because I think that allowing parents to get to work increases their opportunity for economic prosperity in our county as they have decent jobs so they can own homes, buy groceries, and really live prosperous lives. So that's one of my other pieces. I'd like to mention Measure 118. It is a gross receipts tax. We as a commission have come out against this. It is bad tax policy, I think bad public policy. In a recent report from the legislative revenue analyst at the state is it would cost the state at least $1 billion. It is not something that has been a local initiative. These are from external folks. And I think that's one of the things I always worry. I mean, I'm obviously you want people to be able to vote on issues. I think we all agree on that. But it also opens up an opportunity for people from other areas that aren't Oregonians or that have different viewpoints to really kind of come in and present some of these ideas as if they're going to be a good thing. It will be bad for business. I've been talking to our local business people here. Many of you know Lori Oland, who's a dear friend, and she is working with Oregon Business and Industries to make sure that this does not impact our local businesses, our small businesses, and all our statewide businesses. The other thing is I just wanted to mention Commissioner Shaw and I had a great conversation the other day about elections, and because I know that he was asked by his constituents to do some in-depth research, and what he has found is that we are, our elections division is fully prepared to be transparent, to run transparent elections on November 5th, and that we have a high level of confidence in our elected officials there and the volunteers. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, many of these folks that go in to count these ballots, they're not doing it because it's a lot of money or anything like that. They really are oftentimes older folks who want to go in and volunteer because they see this as a way to contribute to the sanctity, in a way, of our voting process here. And I was thinking about it this morning because as I was driving in, I was listening to Oregon Public Broadcasting, and they were interviewing clerks across the nation, I think Pennsylvania and a couple of other states. And it was a pretty intriguing conversation because they are all gearing up, and they are also assuring, as we are here locally, that our election system will be conducted fairly and accurately. And the other thing I guess I'd like to mention about that is we have to respect the people that are working there. One of the things they mentioned that I found was a little disturbing is that they're having to prepare with PPE, that is like medical emergency supplies, because they are getting threats. And some of those threats are sending materials like white powders and things like that to the mailboxes. And one of the folks who was interviewed, one of the clerks says, yes, we are trying to keep our volunteers safe. We don't want to scare them, but they make sure they have Narcan on hand. So I just thought that, to me, was one of the more alarming things that I heard. Because remember, do not put your own friends and your own neighbors at risk, please. They are your neighbors. They are your friends. They want clean and thorough elections, and they are working hard to make that happen. And I know, I think I can assume all my colleagues agree with me on this statement. And thank you, Commissioner Schull, for the research you did, because I think that alleviated a lot of mistrust that people are all hyped up right now. So anyway.
Very much.
That's the news from last week.
Thank you. Commissioner West.
I want to talk about deflection for a second. We've already, through our staff presentations and from this board, have articulated our concerns with the lack of funding and our reduction of funding to not only just carry out essential services to help those that are struggling with substance abuse and also many with homelessness, but when they were tasked to put forward a deflection program, we are underfunded on that, and we're doing the best we can. It looks like there's some local movement to push back against the funding. I'll just give a little quick synopsis about how we got here. So Measure 110 passed, and it dictated that Measure 110 cannabis tax revenues would be managed by the Oregon Health Authority and their Oversight and Accountability Council, and they distribute that $100 million to local BURNs. And BURN stands for Behavioral Health Resource Networks. Counties have them throughout the state in each county. And these BURN networks are what would receive these cannabis dollars to try to deal with the crisis that we've all seen in our streets and our communities. There wasn't a lot of public process. It was kind of done by agency and rulemaking. And the OHA, Oregon Health Authority, and that Oversight Accountability Council, they adopted a formula. And that formula, and their latest version of it, that formula is used to distribute those dollars. And it's also used to distribute deflection dollars. And on the next biennium, over $400 million will be distributed using this formula. It's a significant amount of money. And what happened is the way that formula is written, they don't take into consideration necessarily your population. They don't take into consideration your merit on how successful you've been versus other local governments, what should be funded because it's working. None of that's considered. And what's happened is Clackamas County at one point was 5th in line of counties to receive the dollar figure funding. Now we're 7th, I believe, 6th or 7th, though we're the 3rd largest county in the state. And Multnomah County got a significant more money than us, even though we are half the population, but we're getting about a quarter of the funding that Multnomah County gets. So we're not being funded appropriately based on the crisis and the issue that we face. It looks like Washington County is not so happy with the funding either. Some other local jurisdictions, especially some of the larger counties that are dealing with the bulk of the crisis and have had to carry the bulk of the burden. And there's lawsuits starting to be potentially filed. I believe maybe our council has been made aware of some of the rumblings with other council from other counties. It is out there, it's public record, so the media may be reporting on this. I think it's important this board knows about it. But we're very, very concerned in Clackamas County. This board has expressed the lack of appropriate funding, which basically equates an unfunded mandate. And once again, the state stepping up to the plate and getting the job done. We're hearing about our fentanyl crisis numbers still increasing, the reverberations and the echoes of Measure 110, the difficulty of standing up and getting out House Bill 4002 for the deflection process, the inability to get the local governments that you're relying on to be your boots on the ground, the funding necessary to do the job that must be done to save lives. I have the same angst and concern as maybe these other counties, and maybe Clackamas County should consider joining in the legal effort. I don't know what your thoughts are on this effort. We haven't talked about this.
We will talk about this next week.
Next week. But I think that, in my personal opinion, that if it is if these legal opinions are correct that we're hearing, that we have an ability to have more of a public process in this, and more transparency, I would support that. So I'm concerned about kind of, once again, the lack of deflection funding. And I support our local communities trying to make sure we get the resources we need. That's all I have this week.
Thank you for bringing that up, and we will be having discussions next week about that.
Perfect.
Very nice. Thank you, Ben. I'd like to talk about Measure 117 that Commissioner Scholl brought up, called ranked choice voting. And what I've learned about it, first of all, it's extremely complicated. I don't think people will understand how to vote once it comes out. Let's say there's 4 people on the ballot, and you pick your candidate and you vote for that candidate. You vote for the one candidate. Your vote will be thrown out because you have not ranked your choices according to order. So for candidates, you have to check the box of all 4 and give them a value. So what would happen then, potentially, the person with the lowest amount of votes can win. And it happened in Alaska. That's very real. And that's why I'm so against this. It takes away your constitutional right of voting, and this is an outside source coming into Oregon and yet trying to manipulate us once again, just like they have done with mushrooms and Measure 110, and I can't even remember all the stuff because, frankly, it's too exhausting. We keep fighting this, and Oregon is not a petri dish for the most liberal agenda that people can think of and try to take over our government and our citizenry, and I am just, like, fed up with that. Currently, there are 85 jurisdictions in America trying to get out of this. 85 jurisdictions, which include cities and counties and state governments, are referring this to their citizens to reverse ranked choice voting. Please, people, be aware of what's going on. I don't care what party you come from. I don't care what your political leaning is. Don't do it, because you will not be well represented when you go to vote. Thank you. Seeing no further business before this commission, we are adjourned.